Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Brennan here at the National Hurricane Center. It's just after 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, August 2nd. Coming on this morning to talk to you about Potential Tropical Cyclone Four, which we've now started advisories on. The system is slowly organizing. It's centered over eastern Cuba right now, about 420 miles southeast of Key West. You can see the shower and thunderstorm activity slowly organizing around the system, but it's not yet a tropical depression. But the main message we want to let people know, especially in the short term, is in Florida, we're going to see widespread impacts from heavy rainfall, the possibility of flash and urban flooding, as well as the potential for tropical storm conditions in the Florida Keys and along the Florida West Coast, where we have tropical storm watches and warnings in effect, and also the potential for some coastal flooding. And then there's also the chance of downstream impacts across portions of North Florida and the southeastern United States coast from Georgia up through South Carolina and North Carolina as we go through next week. So let's step through this first. First, we're going to focus on the widespread heavy rainfall threat. This is the rainfall forecast out through Wednesday morning next week. So we're expecting first here in Florida, widespread potential of rainfall amounts expected to be 4 to 8 inches with isolated amounts as high as 12 inches. Looks like at this point the highest rainfall totals are going to be across portions of the Florida West Coast and up into central and northeastern Florida. And then the potential for heavy rainfall is going to extend up across coastal Georgia, South Carolina, and especially into southeastern North Carolina as we go into next week. Again, potential for 4 to 8 inches of rainfall in this area as well. The exact location of that heaviest rainfall and where those highest amounts will occur be pretty dependent on the track of this system, which is still pretty uncertain this far out, especially out here into the southeast where we're talking about 4 to 5 days into the future. So let's take a closer look again into Florida. The impacts are going to start here first in South Florida, the Florida Keys. Rainfall is going to begin tomorrow on Saturday, with also the possibility of tropical storm conditions, and those conditions are going to spread northward across much of the Florida Peninsula as we go from Sunday into Monday. So the risk of flash flooding is going to be highlighted first in South Florida on Saturday here in this yellow area. This is a level 2 out of 4 risk, with a broader level 1 out of 4 risk farther north into places like Tampa or Orlando. As we go into Sunday, a broader risk of flash flooding, including Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, just east of Tallahassee, and then extending up to places like Savannah, Hilton Head into Charleston and coastal South Carolina. And that threat of heavy rainfall and flooding is going to continue in these areas in the Florida Panhandle, southeast Georgia, North Florida, and into the coastal Carolinas as we go through the day on Monday into Tuesday morning. Let's take a look at the track forecast of this system. Right now we're expecting a west-northwestward motion that's going to take the forming center of this across Cuba and then into the Florida Straits on Saturday. And then we're expecting a northward turn. And remember, these tracks where we have a turn that takes the system parallel to the coast means that just a slight shift to the left or right will make a big difference in where the center of this system crosses the coast. And we are expecting it to be a tropical storm as we get into Saturday and Sunday. Right now we're expecting the system to move onshore somewhere along the west coast of Florida. It could be as early as Saturday evening. It could be as late as Sunday evening. And we have a tropical storm watch now in effect for the Florida Keys and a tropical storm warning in effect from East Cape Sable up to Bonita Beach, and then a watch north of Bonita Beach through the Tampa Bay area up to Arapica. So in that warning area, that's where we're most confident those tropical storm conditions are going to occur. They're possible within that watch area, and we'll likely see those watches extend northward across portions of the Florida West Coast, and then eventually out onto the southeast coast of the United States as we go through the next day or so. Again, after the system moves inland, we are expecting a track along or near the coast of the southeastern U.S. from Georgia up through South Carolina and North Carolina as we go through the early to middle portions of next week. And remember, this is all the way out through Wednesday, so we're not expecting a very fast motion here, and that is why we're expecting heavy rainfall to be the biggest threat from the system. But we could see a system approaching hurricane intensity here off the southeast coast if it stays offshore. If it stays inland, of course, the winds will be weaker. Let's look now again at the arrival time of those tropical storm force winds. If they were to occur in the Florida Keys, they would start during the day on Saturday and then spread northward along the west coast of Florida Saturday night and into Sunday, and then potentially reaching the coast of Georgia and into South Carolina as we go through Monday, and then potentially reaching the North Carolina coast during the day on Tuesday. So we have time to watch that evolve over the next couple of days. Coastal flooding will be a concern as well in the Florida Key, from Card Sound Bridge all the way up through southwest Florida, places like Charlotte Harbor, Tampa Bay up to Arapica. Could see coastal flooding of 1 to 3 feet of inundation above ground level. So again, if you live in an area that's prone to coastal flooding, you want to keep this in mind over the next several days. So again, let's sort of wrap up with the key messages. The big hazard for this system that's most widespread is going to be the heavy rainfall and flooding. So we could see flash and urban flooding across portions of Florida and into the southeast U.S. starting this weekend and continuing all the way through Wednesday. We could see some isolated river flooding as well. Again, that's going to be the biggest, most widespread threat, regardless of how strong this system gets or when it becomes a tropical depression or tropical storm. Tropical storm conditions are expected between East Cape Sable and Bonita Beach during the day on Saturday and Saturday night in that warning area, with tropical storm conditions possible in the Florida Keys on Saturday, and then farther north of Bonita Beach up to Arapaima as we go through Saturday night and Sunday. Again, talking about the threat for coastal flooding, and then farther downstream, there's a little more uncertainty in the forecast, but everybody from northeast Florida up through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina coast will want to keep a close eye on this system as we go through the weekend. So just a reminder, you can get more information from us here at the National Hurricane Center at hurricanes.gov. We'll have our forecast coming out every 6 hours with intermediate advisories every 3 hours. So our next update will be around 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you can find information at from your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. So please stay tuned for more updates as we go throughout the next several days. I'm Mike Brennan here at the National Hurricane Center.